attention, please. City Council meeting for January 7th, or January 2nd, 2019. Now you may rise for the pledge.
Nice debate.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
People watch this.
Thanks, Tom and Randy and Diedrich, for coming tonight. So, first thing on is any changes to agenda, including the consent agenda? Okay, seeing none, we'll move on to council reports, and we'll start with Councilmember Dorsey tonight.
Oh, starting with me tonight, okay. All right. Today, I met with Danette Brannon from the Mason Transit at about 2 o'clock. Tomorrow, I'm going to the Workforce Summit out at Alderbrook. That'll be all day long. I think 7:30 to 4 or something. And on Saturday, I want to go to the key ceremony for Sergeant Franklin, who's getting a new home. And I'm looking forward to doing that. Somebody's going to have to show me where Vic Road is, though. I'm not familiar with Vic Road.
I think, Councilman, I think it's Vic King Road.
Vic King Road?
Yes.
Okay. So, and I wanted to say, for some reason, I just wanted to say that tonight is the anniversary of the day I was elected, or the first day I took office here. And I have to say that even though it started off a little rocky, since this council's been formed, it's been rather pleasant to be on this council. So I just wanted to say that.
Thank you, Councilmember. Eric?
Very quiet couple weeks. I attended Judge Greer, Judge Steele's swearing-in ceremonies, and I attended Victoria Meadows' retirement party, and that is all I've done since our last meeting.
Okay, thank you. Councilmember Franz?
Well, I did have an opportunity to meet with our interim city manager, Darren Moody, today for a few minutes, just to welcome him to that seat for a while before our not yet sworn in city manager takes his place. And so any staff briefings or anything I'm available for, and just looking forward to starting the year off serving the city.
Okay, thank you. Last week, or whenever it was, we had the exit audit interview with the state, and I will make some comments later in the meeting, other business on that one. Visit Quixote Village with a group of Mason County veterans and others after Christmas. Coming up, the Workforce Summit tomorrow. We're trying to get an LTAC lodging tax meeting in before someone goes on vacation next week. And also looking for a legislative send-off at the, sponsored by the Chamber. I believe it's Tuesday, correct? Okay, that's it.
Okay. So in addition to tomorrow's Workforce Housing Summit, I will also be attending the Mason County Opioid Stakeholders Meeting on January 9th. Other than that, no other meetings.
Councilmember McDowell?
I had a pretty quiet couple of weeks. I attended Victoria's retirement, which was nice. And I will not be able to visit the veteran as he gets his keys. I'm a little disappointed with that, but I won't be around here. This morning left board, and that's pretty much it.
Councilmember Schmidt?
Good evening, Happy New Year. Looking forward to the Workforce Housing Summit and legislative send-off next week, and more looking forward to the next year of great things to come with the council and staff, so let's get to it.
Okay.
All right.
Okay, now is the time for general public comment. Donna, do we have anybody signed up?
Yes, we do. We have Randy Lewis.
Be interested to see when the clock starts. Hey everybody, Randy Lewis. A few years ago in Richmond, Virginia, I became friends with the marketing head I was working with. He happened to be a retired fighter pilot. As a reservist, he helped out with veterans activities such as softball games for disabled veterans. At one such game, a player broke his prosthetic leg sliding into home. The cost to replace the high-tech prosthetic was $100,000. My reaction, fine with me. For veterans returning home broken, we owe them as much help as we can provide. My father, Bud Lewis, was a World War II hero who barely survived the Battle of the Bulge. Bud earned his engineering degree on the GI Bill, ending up at Simpson & Shelton as one of the first methods analysts, not just at Simpson, anywhere. My grandfather, Harry Olson, was in the cavalry in World War I, when cavalry meant real horses. Harry returned home broken thanks to the horrors he had witnessed and endured. After some years passed, PTSD, called battle fatigue at that time, caught up with Harry, who was placed in a veterans hospital. Without the modern tools available today, typically those patients were simply allowed to age out of their psychological issues. By the end of that process, often it was too late to reintroduce these heroes back into regular society. Many ended up like Harry, who sadly, especially for my mother Dixie, died in the hospital many years later at age 96. Today, this does not have to happen. Programs such as the Tiny Homes Project would have been perfect for Harry. I personally object to the notion that this population will automatically be composed of riffraff we should avoid at all costs. The lot in Mountain View that the city has promised to make available for the Tiny Homes Project is in my neighborhood. I'm a proud alumni of Mountain View Grade School. For me, these vetted veterans are more than welcome in my neighborhood. I personally believe tiny homes will reduce rather than increase the strain on Shelton law enforcement. I would much rather have these homeless veterans in a safe environment than out in the elements. The Tiny Homes Project is not only the humane thing to do, it is a smart thing to do. The first thing I intend to do personally, once the tiny homes are populated, is go visit the residents. Here's what I'm going to say. Brother, welcome to my neighborhood. What is your story? You are important. Is there anything I can do to help you? After all, it is the duty of the strong to protect the weak. Thank you.
Thank you, Randy. Okay. All right, moving on to the consent agenda. Is there a motion to approve the consent agenda as published?
I move to accept the consent agenda as published.
I'll second.
Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, consent agenda is accepted as published. Moving on to the business agenda. Do we have anyone signed up for any business items? Thanks, Donna. First item of the business agenda tonight is 2019 Design and Construction Standards. Public Works Director Gregory will have presentation for us.
Thanks, Mayor, council members. This is our annual update to the design and construction standards. We did not provide you with the entire copy of the design and construction standards. It is sitting in front of me. So you can see that it is a fairly large document. So we just gave you simply the things that we are proposing to change within those design and construction standards. We have listed them out, and the associated increased or decreased costs that you may see with the change. And the one thing that I will point out is the couple of changes that you do see that have an increased cost to development would be more for a larger development, subdivision type activity, not necessarily a single family residence in particular. So certainly open to answering any questions or any clarification that you may want with any of these changes.
Okay, questions or comments for Craig, council?
I guess I would just ask a question on the chapter 2 and the $25,000. Is that an increase from zero, or, I mean, and I'm not exactly sure what adding flashing beacons, what that means.
So this would be much like what you've got at 6th and Railroad. You've got the flashing crosswalk beacon. And this would be for a larger either development or commercial project, much like the hospital. We required per the MUTCD change that now any mid-block crosswalk requires some sort of detection, whether it be in-ground detection or a rapid flashing beacon. We have opted for the rapid flasher. The in-ground, we have found, are very, very expensive to not only install, but also maintain. So we don't want to take something over that we are going to ultimately have to have a burden and cost associated with them on a long-term basis. So it would be more for a mid-block crosswalk in some sort of commercial zone or a residential, high-traffic residential subdivision or something of that sort. But it is a change to the MUTCD that we are complying with.
I have a question on chapter 1, mailboxes. So can you explain what the city does with mailboxes exactly?
Individual mailboxes, individual posts. We're looking at the WashDOT standard for clusters. We've got them already designed for all of our major projects now. And basically, they're just like, they're the larger, instead of having just a row of wooden mailboxes with a roof over the top of them, it's the metal posts that come up, bend, and make a platform for the mailboxes to sit on. Long-term, much easier to maintain. You don't have the rot of the wood in the ground, but it's just the mailbox clusters is what it is.
And the city would be maintaining those.
Unless it's in like a residential neighborhood, a subdivision, they are required through the HOA to maintain those if they get hit, whatever it might be. So unless it's a project that we do and we've made that change, we would then maintain them. Or if it's an HOA, a larger development, they would do their own maintenance on those.
And they wouldn't necessarily be subject to these standards for that.
For the
For
subdivision?
for the HOA or private community, I'll say.
If it were a subdivision, we would require it through the standards
Okay.
that they do go with the metal clustered mailboxes or individual metal posts.
Okay.
This is for new construction?
It would be for only new construction, yes.
Sorry, thanks for asking that. So new construction or repair and replacement?
Correct, either new project or,
So if one gets ran over by a car and it needs to be replaced,
no, they would be able to repair in like kind. We don't have a permit necessarily for an HOA, so if an HOA decided to just replace their mailboxes the way they were existing, and they were under the existing code at the time, they would be able to replace them in like kind.
okay,
So we would not require them to upgrade to this new standard.
okay, thanks.
You said housing, HOA, right?
HOA, sorry, yes.
Now, what about non-HOA? Would the same apply? If a car ran over a cluster of mailboxes as it currently exists,
They would be required to replace them, correct.
up to the standard?
And we don't have those outside of, not that I'm aware of, that we have outside of a development. I'm not aware of any that I can think of right off the top of my head that would be a cluster in town other than a development.
Okay.
Correct. They're trying to throw me off on this one.
No, I think there are some, what I consider homemade clusters out there.
Yeah.
There may be
I got one.
that I'm not aware of, but yes, the private property owners and the postal service would require them to replace them. We wouldn't require them to do any upgrade to those if
Okay.
they were destroyed somehow, need to be rebuilt.
Okay, all right, thank you for clarifying.
They would be in like kind.
Yeah, okay.
There we go.
Any other questions? Okay, do we concur to move this ahead to the action agenda for January 15th? Okay. Next topic, back to Director Gregory, is give us information about comparable cities.
So Mayor, council members, just want to, as we've discussed in the past, we moved this discussion of fee schedules to the study session for the 8th of January, I believe it is. But really wanted to get some direction from the last meeting that we did have of what comparable cities we would like to use and information that you would like us to bring back for the fee schedule discussion on the 8th. We have provided you a list of cities that we had from the 2017 list of comparables that we used for bargaining with our unions and through the AWC website, and also the list of cities, comparable cities from 2019. So 2017 and 2017 and 2018. And then some local comparators also thrown in there that did not show up on the AWC comparison. And that was really generated through population and assessed valuation of each individual city.
And before we have discussion, Craig, do you have the list that you gave me, the 18 list that we're using for?
I do not have that.
Okay, so
Yes.
okay. We discussed this a little bit this afternoon, and just for your information, the 18 list of Shelton comparables they're all on this list, but there's only 7, I believe,
does.
or 8. Blaine, Chehalis, Hoquiam, Kelso, Cedro-Woolley, Squim, Shelton, and Yelm. So,
Yeah, sorry, Mayor, it does list that in the briefing also. Mark just pointed it out to me. It does list the 17 and the 18 cities
Okay.
within the briefing. And then one more point of clarification just before we start into the discussion. The list of comparable cities that we did provide you, the second one down on the list, the one below Shelton, of comparators within that list is inaccurate. One fix to that is, for some reason, when we were going through the AWC website, I don't know if we clicked on a wrong button or what we did, but the information that you have listed for Chehalis is incorrect. The correct information for Chehalis is population of 7,500
Yeah, I thought that was a little.
and valuation of 599 million, 375,000
How much was that, excuse me?
or 7,500 for population.
Yes.
Assessed valuation is 599 million, 335,047 dollars. So the information that you have that's listed for Chehalis is actually the information for Aberdeen.
oh, it's for average, I thought.
That is
okay.
correct. Aberdeen's population is 16,740 with a total assessed valuation of about $888.5 million. So just a point of correction with finding all of these cities. One wrong button when we were going through these. I apologize for that.
Okay. Discussion, the hope, at least my hope, is we narrow these down to a reasonable number. So when we ask staff to do analysis, they don't spend an inordinate amount of time on doing this.
We have started some of that, and it is very time consuming. A lot of the other cities that post these on their websites, we have to go, they don't have it consolidated into one. It's literally going to up to maybe 4 different fee schedules to find all of the pertinent information that we are looking for. So it is fairly time consuming.
Okay.
Oh,
Are you ready for questions?
go ahead.
Yeah, go ahead.
I just, could you, in a simple and just a couple of sentences, kind of explain, what does the term valuation, what does that mean?
It's,
How do they,
it's really just the overall value of your city. It's streets, it's sidewalks, it's all of your facilities.
okay. So I guess to tap onto that is, I would think if we were looking for 5 cities to be close to us to compare on what their fees and stuff would, I would think that would be population and valuation are 2 things. And I see it's amazing, there's a lot of them around the 400, 500, 600, 700 mark, and then they seem to all want to jump up to the 14, 15, or 1 point whatever, billion or whatever, and then, yeah, 4 billion, 5, and it would make sense that we would probably compare ourselves or look at similar cities in that, if I was picking 5. So, and I had ideas of Aberdeen, but Aberdeen does seem to have almost double the population as us, so I'm reconsidering that, and even Port Orchard is growing a lot faster in the past few years, it seems like, if that's current 14,000. So I guess if I was looking to compare, I would think we would be thinking of population and valuation, and that would be one way I would.
Okay. Other comments, questions?
Is Centralia close to like what Chehalis would be, or do you know? I mean, did that get looked at?
Centralia is population of just short of 17,000, 16,940, with a valuation of just north of 1 billion. So they are up there.
They're- yeah.
I think that we should definitely use a neighboring city like Olympia just because they're a neighboring city in the calculations. I like Olympia, Chehalis, Port Orchard, and the county, obviously, because
And I guess just one point of clarification, I think Mark can speak to this maybe more than I can. With using the county, obviously, we're not going to get really anything except for building. You're not gonna get the impact fees, the GFCs, so you're not gonna get a comparator really for sewer or water because you're putting in septic tanks and drilling wells.
TIF as well.
Traffic impact fees, those sorts of things, you're not gonna get a comparison for.
maybe down the road, we can do something with permitting with the county, kind of compare them to permitting down the road.
Yeah.
So, okay, so I'm for Olympia, Chehalis, Port Orchard, and whatever.
But
Let's-
Olympia's 6 billion.
Let's,
Yeah,
Deputy
that's-
Mayor?
I should say, to Eric's point, I think there does need to be some proximate city or cities included in this, because in the reality of things, if we have people shopping around deciding where they're going to spend their money to build and have infrastructure, if they have the choice of being here or in a nearby city, and the fees are very different, we have to consider how that's gonna play into things. So I think that's something outside of population evaluation that we need to consider.
Absolutely.
Could we do both Olympia and Tumwater? Tumwater's there, close to us also.
I was just looking at the neighboring city.
Yeah, the valuation's 6 billion though.
Yeah, I'll put in my 2 cents. And first of all, I'd like, if we could be consistent with another list, that would be nice. Or if not, we have some reasons. And I think Thurston County, it'd be good to have one city, maybe, maybe not 2, but that's my personal, and, no, we talked about it, and Yelm kind of is in Thurston County. It's similar to Shelton as far as not being a bedroom community, it's kind of on the other side, but it's similar. So that's why I was kind of leaning toward the Thurston County, Yelm instead of Lacey, or Olympia, or Tumwater, instead of your 3 core cities.
And it certainly fits the comparator criteria much better than the others, being at a little over, almost 8,700 in population and about 700,000 in valuation, so fairly close on those 2 comparators.
And I'll go through the 218 list. Yeah, it is up above. Had Blaine, which, if you look at the valuation per population, it's significantly higher than anything else. It's what, 150,000 or so plus. So I would throw out Blaine. We have Chehalis, Hoquiam, Kelso, Cedro-Woolley. Squim, same issue. Squim valuation per household or per resident is high. Shelton and Yelm would be the cities on the 18 comparable list. So we'd stick with that list, throw out Blaine and throw out Squim.
So Shelton, Yelm, what else?
It'd be Chehalis, Hoquiam, Kelso, Cedro-Woolley, and Yelm would be the 5 comparables. That's just an idea.
I was gonna say, maybe reduce the list down to around 5, and maybe have 1 higher and 1 lower, and 3 about in the middle. 3 about the same, And that would be Yelm, would be the higher one, right? I believe. Not much higher, but it's higher. What else did you say, Kelso?
Kelso,
It's everything on the final
So-
sentence of paragraph 2, excluding Blaine and Squim.
yeah, and the number that I calculated, just look at, was the average per resident. And the first 5 are all in the 50s. Cedro-Woolley jumps to 69. Yelm is at 82, which, if you know Yelm, that makes sense. So it's at the high end of the average value per resident.
You don't think we should have Chehalis in there? somewhere?
That would include Chehalis. It's right, the first four are almost all in the mid-50s, 50 to 59
Yeah.
per resident.
I like what Bob is saying, that makes sense to me.
So we were saying
So basically, the
Kelso?
If you're taking the,
first,
where it says the 2018 list
Yeah.
included.
Thank you.
It's all of those cities excluding Blaine and Sequim. It'd be keeping the others. So Chehalis, Hoquiam, Kelso, Cedar-Woolley, Yelm, and of course, our own.
Shelton,
Blaine and Squim, you're taking off, right?
Taking off.
Okay.
What's the population of Bremerton? Huge?
Bremerton is
30,000.
30,000, isn't it?
30.
So
Councilmember?
my only comment with this is I'm fine with the list of 5 or whatever. Keeping in mind, though, depending on the issue is going to depend on how we research things. And I'm not comfortable locking into 3 cities or 5 cities and these 3 or 5 for things that we want to compare against each time we compare something. Sometimes I think that it's going to make sense to actually compare against Olympia or compare against Sequim or whatever, based on who knows what, right? The demographics or the total valuation or building fees or whatever. I get it. And at the same time, understanding that we're not going to create a research project every time we're going to try to do something. So I just say that 2 cents on that is just, we may want to research and dig into something and pick different cities at different times for different issues. And I would like to remain flexible on that front, so.
Yeah, I don't think I have a problem with that, as long as
Yeah.
we, again, it's similar to, we have a list.
Somewhere to start.
If we're gonna pick and choose, we need a reason why this list is not adequate. We wanna pick something different, but we have a reason,
Absolutely.
I think then we go that way.
Okay.
Yeah, so that makes sense, to everybody?
Sounds
Okay.
good.
Councilmember Nisco, just to answer your question, I just looked it up. It's close to Lacey, Olympia. It's about 41,000 population, so it's fairly large, Bremerton.
Okay. So we good with direction to staff that the 18 lists minus Blaine and Sequim?
Okay?
Maybe it'd be
Or-
helpful for the record if you just say those so that we make sure we got them exactly
Yeah.
as.
I will do that, interim city manager. Okay, so our recommended list for comps for this purpose at least is Chehalis, Hoquiam, Kelso, Cedar-Woolley, and Yelm. We good? Okay. Guess that item is complete then. Is that correct, Chris? Okay.
Thank you, Mayor,
Thank you.
council members. We look forward to the discussion on the 8th.
Okay, so we're on to the action agenda. Anybody sign up for the action agenda? Okay. Okay, interim city manager, police chief Darren Moody is next on the agenda. He's going to speak to us about adopting the protocol manual.
Thank you, Mayor. In October, the council reviewed the proposed manual with the city attorney and Kathleen Haggard. And since then, she has revised it and is reintroducing it here in condensed measures. The protocol manual is simply a rules of procedure that the council develops within themselves, for themselves, and is a best practice for the city. The city council is authorized by statute to determine their own rules and order of business and establish rules of conduct.
Okay, and we've looked at this quite a bit. I'll ask for the first and final reading of ordinance 1936-0119.
Ordinance number 1936-0119, an ordinance of the City of Shelton, Washington, amending Chapter 2.04 of the Shelton Municipal Code related to adoption of City Council Protocol Manual.
Do we have a motion?
I move to adopt ordinance number 1936-0119, an ordinance of the City of Shelton, Washington, amending Chapter 2.04 of the Shelton Municipal Code related to adoption of City Council Protocol Manual.
Second?
Okay, we have a motion ahead of us. Discussion on the motion. Hearing none. Okay, we have a motion and a second to adopt ordinance number 19360119, an ordinance of the City of Shelton, Washington, amending Chapter 2.04 of the Shelton Municipal Code related to the adoption of the City Council Protocol Manual. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, motion passes. Okay, next, administration report from interim city
As
manager.
we were
Darren
talking
Moody.
before the meeting, I can be pretty self-serving and tell you about the police department, but I really don't have a city manager report. But other than to tell you, New Year's Eve was uneventful, which is a good thing. We were out New Year's Eve, and it was a pretty uneventful evening, other than the fireworks going off. And as I talked to the mayor earlier, we looked at our calls for service year-to-date, and we are 3,000 calls for service more than we were year-to-date last year. That's about all I have to report at this time.
Okay, thank you, sir. New items for discussion? I just have one. I just want to, I know it's been public, it's out on the, on various iFiber sites, the city audit that we reviewed after Christmas, correct, Terry? Before Christmas, okay, thank you. Just, I want to commend the current staff for digging into that and completing the 2 years' worth of books, getting CPA firms in, getting the state auditor on that, and I appreciate all the efforts, you and everyone who was involved with that. I will also say I'm very disappointed in the prior management for letting that go, but appreciate current management and ongoing to look at that seriously and move ahead positively on that. And thank you very much, Terry.
Thank you. Appreciate it. And the finance staff also.
Thank you. Okay, seeing nothing else to discuss tonight, next regular meeting will be Tuesday, January 15th at 6. We have a study session January 8th. That's next Tuesday night. So we're adjourned.
You're closer than I was.